Thank you for joining me for this brief video on finding financially friendly schools. If you're a parent of a rising senior, there's important tasks and things you can do to get started with the financial aid process and finding out the true costs of the schools that your student is applying to. You probably know that the factors that dictate the cost of school can really vary, depending on if the school is in-state or out-of-state, public versus private. Schools have different sizes of endowments, and now many students are starting to take classes online. Although the tuition might not be less, it can save money for the room and board costs. You're probably familiar with the FAFSA, the Federal Financial Aid Application Form. It does open in October of the senior year, and students will need a FSA ID. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a task that parents and students can start on this summer so that they're more prepared when October rolls around. The only way that students can be considered for federal aid is by completing the FAFSA. So it's very, very recommended, and you will have to provide information of the social security numbers of the parent and the student and have confirmation of citizenship as well as income information. The tax information plays a big role in determining how much the financial need will be for your family. So at studentaid.gov, there is a sign-in where you can create your FSA ID, your username, and a password. We will need one for the parent and one for the student as well. Make sure you save these in a safe place, as well as all of the other usernames and passwords that the student will be creating during this college application process. It's also important not to use the high school email address because the Federal Student Aid Commission will continue emailing students and parents after the senior year of high school. So you'll want to be able to access any of the emails that you've given them. You can also use your mobile phone if you would rather receive information to your phone through a text. I wanted to cover a few terms because if you haven't had a student go through the college application process yet, some of the things I'll be talking about might be new to you. So the EFC is a really important term. It's the expected family contribution. And after filling out the FAFSA in October, you will receive what your expected family contribution will be based on how much money the family has and how much they can pay. The net price you will see quite often on websites is the actual cost that's paid by an individual student after scholarships and aid have been deducted. Now the sticker price is what the total cost of attendance is at a college. But you probably know that the sticker price is often not the real price that a student pays. So how do we find out what the actual price is going to be? That's what I want to talk about today. Demonstrated need is the difference between your EFC, your expected family contribution, and the cost of the attendance at the school. Students can also receive merit aid, and that's money that's awarded to students based on achievements. And the merit aid most usually comes from each institution, and they offer different percentages of merit aid to cover the cost of attendance. So how do you determine what the net price of your students' potential colleges actually are? Well, there's a website there that you can go to, the nces.ed.gov College Navigator. It's a college affordability and transparency center that I think everyone applying to college and their parents should be very familiar with. Now, the net price calculator is a tool that you can use to see if a school is going to be an affordable option for your family. You can enter the information to find out what students like them paid to attend the institution in the previous year, and that's taking grants and scholarship aid into account. So this is what the main page looks like on the College Affordability and Transparency Center, and you can click right on this net price calculator center and determine what your net price will be at each college. College Scorecard is also a site that I will talk about in more depth because it really has important information to research. And then here's the College Navigator that I just spoke of. So this is a great site. I would copy down and bookmark this on the computer. So how is the calculator different than the FAFSA forecaster? They're both tools that I highly recommend you check out this summer. It's going to help you get an early start on the financial aid process by using both the net price calculators and the FAFSA forecaster. You will have a very clear idea what the actual cost and what the actual aid from the school will be. It'll provide an early estimate. It's not exact. It is a great experience to be able to fill this out because it is going to give you a head start on filling out the FAFSA. The information that you put in here will roll over into your FAFSA application. So you do need that FSA ID to fill out the FAFSA forecaster. So first step is to get your FSA ID and then fill out the FAFSA forecaster. And then as you review your college list and see what schools you might be applying to in the fall, you look at the net price calculators to find out what you'll actually pay. So this really increases your knowledge of the financial aid process by filling this out in advance. I would also like to draw your attention. You can Google this. The website address is very long, but it's the Domestic Undergraduate Need-Based and Merit Aid based on the year prior. So the information I have is from 2019, but in August, the 2020 information will come out. And I would just like to draw your attention to that every college in the United States is on this spreadsheet. There are some that do not provide the information. Like there's this one, Alma College is blank right here. Some of the smaller and private schools do not. But you can see in the total cost of attendance that the cost really varies. Now, this is the room and board, tuition, books and fees all together. So it really is the main total cost. And that is what we would call the sticker price. But students rarely ever pay the sticker price. It's nice to have a list of how many students are at the school, but what's more important to me is the average percent of need met. So once you fill out the FAFSA forecaster, you will have an idea of what your expected family contribution is going to be, and this average percent of need is going to be the difference between the cost and what your family can afford. So what will this school, this particular institution, pay towards that gap? And Adelphi, as you could see, has a 48% fill. So there's only going to be about half of it met by that institution. The rest of the money is going to need to come from outside loans or scholarships or money that the student earned or family, other money that they can pull together. But you can see here too that Amherst College pays 100% of the need. This is huge. So if your student is applying to Amherst and they have a great deal of need, you can be assured that this school is going to cover it. Now, some of that might be loans, but you can be assured that it's going to be covered. So looking through here, you can see that there's quite a variety of what the schools will pay. And this website has, pages and pages to look through. And here's the average merit aid. Now, the merit aid is free money. It does not have to be paid back. And you can see how much it varies, and that there's some schools that do not give merit aid, but they will give it in some other way. So this is just a helpful tool that you may want to check out. I want to speak briefly about the CSS profile. It is similar to the FAFSA, but there are many differences. Some families will need to fill out the CSS profile, and it is part of the College Board, which runs the SAT. How is the CSS similar to the FAFSA? Well, they're both going to ask for financial aid information. They're both going to determine how much a student is going to receive at the university they attend. They're both online forms, and the information that you put in will be sent to all of the schools that you're applying to, and then they determine how much aid they will give according to what is on the CSS profile. Many more differences with the CSS profile and the FAFSA. One is the federal government is the issuer of the FAFSA, but College Board, is a private entity, and that's who rules over the CSS. The FAFSA is free to complete, but there is a $25 fee for the first school for the CSS profile, and if there are additional schools, then it's $16 for each school that uses the CSS. You can read some of this on your own, but the biggest point I want to make is that the CSS is only used for about 250 colleges and universities. The FAFSA covers many, many, many more. But it's important to check if the schools that are on the student list take the CSS profile, because in many cases it would be something that would earn the student additional funding at a university, and it might be worth that $25 or $16 fee. Now, the College Scorecard is also a U.S. Department of Education site that I want to draw attention to. You can, it's very clear and clean and user-friendly. Type in the name of the school you're looking at. You can compare and get charts and graphs similar to the one that I showed that shows how much need, how much merit aid. Each of these will open and you can find out the costs. There are important things in figuring out if a school might be a financially friendly school for your student. Key things to check out here. One is an important factor called need met, and that indicates the percentage of the students who had their financial aid need fully met at each institution. Also, gift aid. Some colleges give much more gift aid, and you can find under the financial aid how much gift aid is given at each institution to students. That's money that does not need to be paid back. There's also self-help aid, which shows the percentage of students who receive loans and work study awards, and it tells the average amount of money given. There's also time to graduate, and that is a factor that really determines how much a student is going to spend. If a student can get out of a university in 4 years, only paying 4 years of tuition and room and board, it is much less money than if a student takes 6 years. So finding the graduation rates and retention rates, how often does a university hold that student there, and how long, how many students do they keep, it makes a huge difference. So checking out some of these factors. I do have a chart that can be used to look at the schools that are on the students list and fill out these different amounts so they're all in one place. If you would like to have that chart, I would be glad to email it to you so you can organize this data. Also, the average student loan debt can be found on this college scorecard site. So at each institution, students have different amounts of loan debt. So if the loan debt is huge at one university, the average student graduates with $100,000 in loan debt, you can compare that to a school where the average student graduates with $25,000 loan debt. It also will tell what the monthly payment will be for that amount of loan debt. And another thing you can look at is the field of study that a student is in, because there are different salaries on different majors on the average, right? So it's a good thing to think about, to work with your student, to have this conversation about what your family will be able to afford so that your student is very prepared to understand, where the boundaries are. It's also important to know that the students who are accepted at a school from the previous year have a certain GPA and test score, if it's not a test blind school, right? So if your student is right there above or at the average percentage of GPA and test scores of the students accepted, the closer a student is to the average accepted student, the more likely they will receive generous aid. If they're way back, lower test scores or GPA, then there's less of a chance that they're going to get this average aid that is being talked about on College Scorecard. So here's the terms that we talked about: need met, gift aid. You can go back over these if you forgot or you want to look them up. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. So give me an email at bestfitcollege.com or check out on my website, because I do have some blogs and podcasts there that might be helpful for you. And I'm looking forward to hearing about what you discover. So thank you for watching and being with me today, and enjoy this process. Thank you.